Hi, welcome everyone. Friar Tuck here. This is my epoch. I'm getting a bunch of videos uploaded, some topics that I've been telling you that I was going to talk about. And today's topic is going to be talking about planning about going off grid. Now, you saw in my live stream kind of like my plans to go to Colorado, but you guys are kind of seeing it pieced together. Okay. So if you were planning on going off grid, here's what I would recommend for you. And it's going to it's a long drawn out process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not like, oh, I'm going here, I'm going to set up, because there is a learning curve. And, even being housed up and doing all these different things, even if you go out and, you hike for a weekend or you do day hikes or, you travel somewhat, stuff like that, it's nothing like living outside full time. Okay. Because, when you're hiking a trail, you got a home to go back to, you're looking forward to it by the end of the, however long you've chosen to hike or whatever mode of travel that you're choosing to use. Okay. But going outside, I've been doing this for 15 months and, it's taken a while for my body to become acclimated. So if you're planning on going off grid, one of the most important recommendations I would give for you is you need to spend at least a year outside. Even if that means you're going to camp in your backyard the whole time, stop using the electricity, use as little water as possible, things like that. Learn how to become self-sufficient and how to be able to live within your means, within what nature and what your environment gives you, and being able to remove those dependencies on what the accommodations of being housed up. That is important to make your time out here less miserable than it's already going to be. Because I'm telling you, I could deal with the cold. I could deal with the heat. One thing I hate out here is I hate rain, because rain has a way of compromising your health and your ability to get things done. Because with the rain, temperatures drop. And then, from there, if your gear is wet, then, you run the risk of getting, sick all the way down to pneumonia or hypothermia, depending upon the temperatures. Okay. So that's going to be my first recommendation. Okay. Go spend a year outside. Get used to the four seasons, dealing with the hot and the cold and the inclement weather and all the other things. Okay. Once you've done that, when you've probably done some traveling during that period of time, which I would strongly recommend, because you need to know what am I capable of, okay? Because we'll get into that later, but what is it that I'm capable of? Can I do 10 miles a day? Can I do 20 miles a day? How hard am I pushing myself? Am I giving myself enough time to rest? How is my diet? Because, when you're housed up, you've got all that food in your cupboards. Well, what happens when you just got to put as much food as you can carry in your bag? And what food is it that you're going to carry? What is it that your body will accept? Because at least for me, I get hungry, but certain things, if I try and eat them, it sucks the energy right out of me, or my stomach gets upset just because of whatever reason. And so this is something that you'll have to deal with. Going outside and going off grid, is that you're going to have to really hone in your diet, what it is that your body will accept and what it is that your body won't accept, especially when you're dealing with exhaustion. One thing I didn't realize until we got in this hotel room was how little sleep we were getting during this cold. I was getting enough sleep to be able to function, but as soon as we got in, it was warm, it was comfortable. It's like all of a sudden my eyelids became so heavy that, I was ready to sleep. I think I slept like, 10, 12 hours last night, catching up on some of the rest, just so that my body could restore itself. And you may have to go through long periods of time of cold. And how is that going to affect your sleep? And the same thing in the heat. If it's too hot at night until like about midnight, and then it's, starting about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, the heat comes right back, especially if you're down south, that will also affect your sleep. So this is part of getting acclimated. Once you've traveled around, once you've spent some time outside, then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pick your location. So those of you that have been following me know that we're going to go west of the Rockies. We're going to go somewhere along the Great Divide Trail, and that's kind of where we're looking at as far as where we're going to go off grid. Okay. Now each person has, you got to look at the weather. You got to look at the resources. Cause I mean, you're going to be looking to, buy, you're going to be looking to grow a garden. So what kind of fruits and vegetables can you grow in that area? Okay. And what is your growing season? Because if you have all 4 seasons, you maybe have 7 months of growing and the rest of it is not good growing temperature. Okay. So choosing your location and where you want to go is important. Okay. Especially being like next to water sources, or having water replenished. So like, going to the Rockies, well, that's the continental divide. So everything west of the Rockies is going to flow to the Pacific. And so that means all of the tributary water and everything else like that, before it gets to man, I will have an opportunity to take my portion from it because I am closest to the source. Okay, at least that's what the intent is, and that's what we're looking to do. Okay, and then that also helps us with growing and everything else like that. Okay, now another thing, because you got to look at the laws, okay? So I'm going out into national forest, into BLM land, okay? Bureau of Land Management, not Black Lives Matter, okay? And on BLM land, you can, by law, you can camp there for about 15 days. After 15 days, you got to move. Okay, now some people have, played on the technicalities and like, yeah, all I got to do is move 15 feet. But if you're building structures, then again, that's something that you may end up finding to be, you might run into some legal problems there. Okay, because you're supposed to be there, you're camping. The way that the government looks at it is that you should be in a city, in a dwelling, and this is just for recreation. So therefore, going and spending 15 days on the land and then going back, that's one thing. It's a way to free camp. Well, if you're planning on doing this for long term, you've also got to look at, how am I going to set up my camps? And this is something that I've been really working on as far as camps, because I want to be able to have at least 3, a minimum of 2 camps, because if one of them gets overran, then I can, I have the ability to move to the next camp. Okay. The other thing is I have to move every 15 days. So I'm going to be setting up minimalized bushcraft structures, like maybe like you see where they take the trees and they fall out and they put the leaves and stuff like that. So during cold weather, you've got something to be under. You're using the terrain and kind of molding it without creating a permanent structure, like let's say a log cabin. Okay, because that's really what I would like to be able to build, is a log cabin. But that's going to be many years down the road before I can do something like that. Because I've got to wait for the rule of law to break down, the country to break down, and then I can do whatever the hell I want. But up until then, I've kind of got to keep my camps to a minimum. As far as setting up gardens, you got to look at the animal life around there. You got to be able to protect it, because you're going to be, 15 days here, move to the next camp 15 days, then move to the next camp 15 days, then come back 15 days. So it's going to be 2 months before you get back, and it'll be ready to harvest, because you've let nature do its job, but also you got to worry about all the different critters. And so, understanding the different types of food that you can plant that will complement itself to be able to keep the critters away from it as best as possible, because you're going to be sharing it with the local critters, especially if you're coming back maybe once every couple of months. Okay. But you also, you show up, you know where it's at. You already have some structures, like let's say you built a fire pit, you built a place, a structure, so that if it's raining or if it's cold, you can get under, things like that. Something minimalist that is blending into the land, and so you've got to be able to leave it so that if somebody comes by, they will barely notice it. 1 or 2, if the government comes by, like one of the the forest rangers comes by, they can look at it and go, okay, well, somebody just built this and then they left it, and they're not really going to pay too much attention. Okay, so you kind of got to do incognito. Okay, and then the next thing is we're on the East Coast and we're wanting to go west. You got to look at travel. How am I going to get there? How do I do it? So Sam and I could do a Greyhound bus, and we could go to Denver, or we could go to Albuquerque, catch the trail, walk up, or catch the trail, walk south, and we could find our spot along the way. Okay, there's other places that we're looking at, but that's just kind of like the general vicinity of where we're looking. Okay, and so you've got to figure out, how am I going to travel, especially if this is your bug out plan, if you're a prepper. But if you're homeless, this is also something that you need to consider as well, is, how am I going to get there? You could hop freight train. But will freight train take you close to where you need to go? Are you going to have to use Greyhound? Are you going to have to road walk? Can you get on trail? What are your options of travel to get to where it is that you want to get to? Okay, and so these are the basic things that you want to consider if this is part of your bug out plan, if this is part of your SHTF plan. Or if you're homeless and you just want to be able to exit society and say, I'm done. I'm just going to go live out in the woods, live off of my skills, and and just become a survivalist and have my peace. Okay. Either way, these are things that you as an individual need to consider when thinking about going off grid and doing it. But you also got one other thing that you really should consider is the fact that there are other people that have been doing this for 100 years. Okay, there are militia camps out there. There are the cartels are out there because it's easy for them to sit there and on forest land, put a couple of dogs out there and grow whatever it is that they want to grow, and then that way they keep it local. That does happen, and especially west of the Rockies, because of how uninhabited that area is. There are even towns which are called part of the drug highway, and I ended up getting in one of those towns way back when, about maybe 10 years ago, okay? And I did not know that they existed, but apparently they do. So these are some things that you really need to consider when you're out there, and you need to be observant of, because if you go into somewhere where they're growing stuff that they shouldn't be growing, you may run the risk of putting your life in danger, because you're going to be fighting off a cartel, or you're going to be fighting off other militias, because they don't want you out there. They want their privacy. They want their seclusion. That's why they're out there to begin with. Okay, so right now would be the prime time to be able to get out there, because in 2 years or 5 years, after the whole world really falls apart, there may not be any land for you to go and try and get to, because you're walking through other people's camps and other things like that. Another thing to consider is most people go with, oh, well, I'm just going to go like maybe 500 feet or 1,000 feet off of trail, or, off of the road or whatever. Well, one, you're visible that way. Two, it's much easier for people to stumble across you. You want to take a mile, 2 miles, 5 miles at max, away from the main ways in which traffic comes through that area, okay? And, this is, you might want to have some trackers and some stuff like that. That way you can GPS your way through there. And as you go back and forth, you will create natural trails, okay? And one of the things I've learned is go to where I'm gonna go and then make my trail back, because, you're just kind of wandering around until you find a spot, and then you're like, okay, here's the spot. Now, how do I get back? And then you create your trail back. That is what I have found to be easiest, and I find that I have a better. It's easier for me to get out than it is for me to get in. Okay, so these are some things you want to consider. Thank you for watching. You know how to help the channel. Become a subscriber. Don't forget to hit that bell notification. Leave me your comments down there and tell me what you think. And everything else is down in the description. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.